It's Flying Friday, and today we have Legends of Flight. At a glance, this movie is a love song from Boeing to itself, showing off the launching of the Dreamliner. In the present day, it's tempting to insert some jokes and cynicism about all this, but watching this was such a beautiful experience that it feels inappropriate somehow. This is a great time, and I just didn't feel the need to make it less. The star of the movie is not Boeing. It's not even airplanes. Rather, 3D sits front and center here. One phrase I kept repeating was, "Oh, neat. Neat." That's really it. This is a really neat presentation. Every opportunity is taken to fly something into the camera. Nearly every scene seemed to exist for the sole purpose of giving us a unique and interesting 3D moment. This brief presentation was a 3D dream factory. So much so, my slideshow is unable to show the best moments of this movie. There are many more wonderful shots that were just too complicated to create a clean rotation for. You'll have to take my word for it. There are a lot of neat things to see in this one. A natively shot 3D movie, it used 300-pound IMAX cameras. That translates to a lot of stationary shots and slow-moving cranes. There's a couple of great long, slow shots where the camera slowly glides across an area up towards something like a window, which is just a pleasure to soak in. 3D loves it steady and it loves it slow. More often, they'll pick an interesting part of the factory to gaze at and then give us lots of time to soak it in. There are many interesting shots that can be stared at almost indefinitely. These factories seem also to exist for the sole purpose of being filmed in 3D, layers upon layers of metal, rope, and windows. There's so much to see that it actually becomes difficult to hear what is being said, as the images are so interesting that they take over the brain. They also do a lot of, again, neat stuff with simple line art animation, whether bringing to life a sketch in a boardroom or demonstrating the atomic makeup of carbon fibers. The sketches bring us into a world of imagination and play. Its simplicity making even the most complicated ideas feel like child's play. And also, the high contrast colors pop out amazingly well in 3D. Simple colors and 3D work so well together. There are some fun flying shots, of course. This is Legends of Flight. This glider, which I believe is meant to demonstrate an innovation they had in wing style, they frequently let that wing clip out into very extreme negative space as we soar across these mountains. Elsewhere, we see some jet fighters fly around for some reason. I believe they're probably CGI planes on real backgrounds. It works well because you get to see the plane in far more extreme stereo image than a real camera would allow. And again, constantly coming out of the screen and poking you in the nose. This movie has some of the most entertaining visuals I've seen in an IMAX documentary. Often IMAX relies on its big screen, so 3D tends to be a bit dialed back in their branded production. Here, they are happy to push right out, at times even exceeding my comfort zone, but never my entertainment zone. Like most IMAX 3D from the film era, this is a brief flight of 45 minutes. The disc has a 30-minute behind-the-scenes program that is not in 3D, but offers great shots of those massive analog IMAX cameras. I've heard this described as a corporate video disguised as a documentary. I don't think it's disguised at all. It's absolutely a Boeing company reel. However, the medium becomes the message, and the company takes a back seat to its own presentation. This is an absolute star of the final years of IMAX's analog 3D era. Story-wise, what is under discussion at any particular moment tends to fall into the background. I suppose it's a dramatization of building the then fancy new Dreamliner plane. I learned nothing and loved every moment of it. And it's amazing to see so many people pulling this thing together. It was like people were shrunk down and were traveling inside of some giant cyborg machine. What struck me, though, was the question of just getting so many people to cooperate. There's a thing about people I was once able to witness firsthand. I forget if it has a term, but when an organization exceeds a certain number, a small number, somewhere around 100 people, management starts to fall apart. You either need to break up your group or move into a, shall we say, a more corporate HR system. Otherwise, you might destroy your business. I was with a company that was going through such an expansion. It took them from around 50 to around 300 and later well beyond. And what was interesting to see is how camaraderie broke up into competitive groups. And there began to arise a smattering of, shall we say, loners that felt emboldened to complain, make trouble, or just plain sabotage the overall operation. And it's fascinating to see an operation such as this work, actually function. If this movie demonstrated anything to me, it was that a great idea is not enough. Putting it together is where the rubber leaves the runway.